You know, the funniest part about JD Vance to me is that he was vetted like all candidates are, and the people that did that vetted him, didn't find any of these unearthed clips that we keep bringing out showing you as to just what a weirdo JD Vance truly is. We just keep bringing these receipts every time we talk about the guy, and I say to myself, before you made him the vice presidential pick, didn't you sort through any of these things and ask yourself, will this appeal to an independent or moderate? Why is it that Donald Trump just continued to double down on his extremism? And JD Vance has this really weird obsession, for whatever reason. He has this really weird obsession with people who don't have children. And he is terrified that people who don't have children might talk to his, and it deeply disturbs him. And to be honest, his obsession with this deeply disturbs me, but take a look.
And I think our conservative idea is that parents and families should determine what children learn, what values they are brought up with. You know, so many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. And that really disorients me and it really disturbs me. Randy Weingarten, who's the head of the most powerful teachers union in the country, she doesn't have a single child. If she wants to brainwash and destroy the minds of children, she should have some of her own and leave ours the hell alone.
Okay, let me just say this. I have 5 kids. I have 4 sons and a daughter, and my daughter had my grandchild. So I've got 5 children and a grandson, and I'm 44 years old. One of my best friends in this world is 43 years old. We grew up together. We played music together. He doesn't have children. And I have never one time criticized him for that. I've never thought he was weird for not having children. Never even brought the conversation up. We've never had the conversation as to why he chose not to have children. I don't know why, and I don't care, because he's one of my best friends in the world. And he's welcome around my children anytime. He can talk to my children anytime. And if he was to tell them something that I wasn't familiar with or something that I didn't necessarily agree with, I have raised my children in a way that I'm confident he could talk to them and they wouldn't just decide to run off and go join some cult with him. It's absolutely ridiculous to me that JD Vance is fixated on people with no children, and he's scared that they're going to somehow influence his children. And he's worried about people grooming children. When in Project 2025, it plainly talks about how they want to put family at the center of everything. Again, he's ripping straight from Project 2025. They want the family to be the centerpiece. They want the man to be in control of the house. They want him to make all of the decisions. And they want everything to be dictated by their interpretation of the Bible and their interpretation of the Constitution. And anyone else that has a difference of opinion, they're not welcome at the party. So my question to you would be, who is the real groomer? The one who wants everyone believing the same way he believes and wants everyone's children to be raised the way that he raises his. And also he wants people that aren't having children to suddenly start having children. Make this make sense for me. I'm truly sitting here trying, folks. I'm trying to figure out how this all factors in on JD Vance, unless it's just simply that JD Vance wants to control me and you, and he wants other people to have children so he can control their children too. So you've got my buddy who's childless, who doesn't have kids. Last time I was over at his house, he had a cat, so he's a childless cat dude, okay? So you got him and you got me. I've got 5 kids and a grandson. But if I decided to become a teacher tomorrow, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go into the classroom and I'm going to teach from the textbooks. I'm going to teach the facts, and I'm not going to try to persuade any kid in there to have my progressive viewpoints. I'm not going to try to win any kid over to my way of thinking. I'm going to teach them based on facts, based on evidence, based on research, and based on data. And I believe at the end of the day, that's what truly terrifies the JD Vances of this world. They're scared to death that they're going to raise their kids up in these bubbles. They're going to raise their kids up in these echo chambers. And then their kid is going to go out into the world. And when it goes out into the world, it's going to be approached with facts. It's going to be taught science. It's going to be taught the way things really are. And that's going to cause it to question everything that JD Vance has taught his children. I think that's what he's terrified of. I'm not terrified of that because I've always raised my children based on the facts of life, and I don't dig into ancient books to teach my children from it. I encourage them to read it for themselves and find if it has any meaning to them. Any of my children will tell you that I've said to them, if you want to go to church, you can. I'll drive you and drop you off. I'll come back and get you. You know, if you want to go to church, you can. If you want to go to Sunday school, you can. If you want to go to Bible school, you can. Now, and you want to read the Bible, you're welcome to. Tell me what you thought about it. Did you believe it? Did you not believe it? Either way, I'm still your dad. I don't care one way or the other. I have children who are believers, and I have a son that isn't. I don't care either way. I think they're both productive members of society. And the one that's a believer has my grandson. The one that's not much of a believer at all doesn't have children yet. If he never does, I'm not going to be afraid for him to come to family dinner. I'm not going to be afraid for him to come to Thanksgiving, and I'm not going to think that he could somehow brainwash his nephew. It's just, that right there to me from JD Vance is just a straight up sign of weakness. It's an absolute sign of weakness that he's afraid that if someone else speaks to his kid, someone that doesn't have children, or someone that has an opposing view, because like I said, I've got 5 children, but I'm sure he wouldn't want me talking to his kid either. So a guy that has a difference of opinion, that's what he's afraid of, because they don't want progress in this world. They've made it very clear. They want to take this country backwards. They want to go back to a time when mediocre white dudes ruled the roost, and black people didn't have a say, and women didn't have a say, and gay and trans people stayed in the closet and didn't identify and love the people they loved. That's what they say when they say make it great again. When you got guys like JD Vance, who's in his 40s, and you got people like Charlie Kirk, who's 10 years younger than me, and they're saying they want to go back to the 50s when they themselves weren't even born in the damn 50s. No, they're wanting to go back to a mindset that is comfortable to them. They're wanting to go back to a mindset that won't question the things they were taught to believe in. I have always questioned what I believed in, and I'm the black sheep of my family for doing it. But it's okay. I don't care. I would much rather go out there in the world, question things, and when I get presented with facts and I get presented with evidence, I'm okay with saying, well, you know what? I used to believe in these things, and now evidence has shown me that what I was believing in isn't true. One of the most fascinating things I've ever learned and have enjoyed learning is enjoyed learning where the Bible came from. I was raised to believe it. I was raised to believe it was the Word of God. And one day I began to question, okay, how was this book assembled? How was it put together? Where are the missing books? Where are the missing texts? What languages was it interpreted from? I discovered a guy named Bart Ehrman. I highly recommend his podcast, Misquoting Jesus. I began listening to that and studying that, downloading his lectures on it. And I began to learn how, oh, wait a minute, wow. I had no idea that the book of Isaiah used to be split into 2 parts. There was first Isaiah and second Isaiah, and they were written in completely different time frames by completely different authors. Wow, I didn't realize that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John never actually met Jesus. None of these people actually met him. These were accounts that were handed down and written years later. I was fascinated by all those things. I wasn't scared. I wasn't sitting here going, oh no, but JD Vance is. JD Vance never wants his kid to stumble across that podcast, because then he can't control his kid. Then he can't make his kid walk a certain way and act and live a certain way. That's not apparent to me. If you're afraid of what your kid might learn, if you're afraid of what your kid might read, and if your kid can be convinced to throw away everything you ever said to them, you weren't a good parent to start with. I'm just going to be brutally blunt, you weren't. Because the things I taught my children are things that can't be taken away. Because I went ahead and gave them permission to allow things to be taken away. It's like, you know what, if you go out there in the world and you find facts and evidence that dispute something I said, hey, come back and tell me about it. Come back and tell me about it, and I'll sit down and listen to you, and we'll talk it out. And it'll be okay. My kids know they can be anything they want to be in this world, believe anything they want to believe. And one day, when we're all older, if we're sitting around Thanksgiving and, you know, I have a kid from all walks of life, I have diversity that I raised, that's something I'm going to be proud of. I'm not going to look at it that, oh, this one over here is the weirdo. No, the weirdo is the ones that wants everyone to believe exactly like them and are scared to death and terrified and are disturbed. I'm disturbed at the thought of someone talking to my child. Then you wouldn't a parent start with our JD Bowman.